Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much, Catherine. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at Beacon this year, and welcome to this session on humanizing the data experience. I am Meghan O'Hern. I'm a customer engineer with GCP and Looker, focused on data analytics. And today we will be discussing and really walking through the modern business intelligence platform. And I'll highlight some shifts that we're seeing within GCP and really just across the entire data landscape, from this more traditional approach to business intelligence into something that we might call human first analytic solutions. We'll start by setting the stage within the contemporary data landscape. So in what we're referring to as the information age. And I'll highlight some trends that we're seeing in modern day infrastructure as data really becomes even more of a driving and central force within businesses. From there, we'll move into a retrospective of how we've arrived at these existing problems and solutions. And then we'll take a look at where the future of analytics is headed. And then to tie everything all together, we'll showcase what this looks like in the context of our GCP solutions with a live demonstration that illustrates and showcases how GCP and Looker are humanizing information to more directly connect businesses to insight. So let's go ahead and begin. Welcome to the information age. So we're all familiar, we're all living in this. This is a time when there is so much information available and so much data being collected, but we're seeing this paradox. So we're witnessing companies drowning in information, but they're actually often starving for real insight. So how has this phenomenon come about? The use of data has long played a key, crucial, very important role in running a business. In today's world, we're starting to see that the sheer amount and the complexity of the data is actually becoming overwhelming, and it's becoming prohibitive rather than enabling and empowering. So this is a time when companies are collecting and processing terabytes of data. Data sets have become so huge, have become so complex and fast moving that we're really seeing companies having trouble understanding and actually uncovering the insight within the data itself. And we're all experiencing this phenomenon of information overload. And especially in data, we're just seeing that the amount of data that is being collected, being processed, being analyzed is actually making it more difficult for businesses to optimally leverage the data to make better decisions and to more effectively drive operations within their business. So how did we get here? And where do we go from here? How do we actually tap into and use more effectively the complexity and the sophistication of not only the data, but also the tools that are available for data processing, exploration, to make better decisions and start to derive real, tangible, actual insight from that data? Okay, so when we think about business intelligence, at its core, we see this need and this desire for data-driven decision-making. And decision-making is a key capability for every organization It's what keeps businesses moving forward. And really effective decision making is what differentiates successful businesses from average counterparts and from their competition. So traditional business intelligence was really the first iteration of tools that allowed organizations to inform their decisions with data. Naturally, this became incredibly valuable because companies and leaders could now use data to verify, understand, quantify decisions that were previously highly intuitively guided. So the launch of business intelligence provided that direct visibility into current performance, allowed and served as a benchmark of how the company was currently performing, and allowed businesses to understand the business impact of every single decision that they made. And so this value was apparent just immediately, and that encouraged organizations to become data-driven. So companies are shifting to this data-driven model, and with that, they would see and be able to quantify operational improvements simply by monitoring these key performance indicators. And in this first iteration, so the initial business intelligence platforms limited decision-making and access to largely to technical teams, right? So a lot of this was being handled by data experts who knew how to process and analyze the data. And there's this need and this a bit of a gap. So from there, we're seeing this migration to the democratization of data and data access. So we're seeing this, companies are starting to provide access to decision makers throughout the organization, across the organization, not just necessarily limited to specific technical teams or data capabilities or data skill sets. Data has already proven itself as this incredibly valuable commodity. And so modern companies are starting to realize this and realize that insights need to be accessible everywhere within the organization. So there's this big trend and this big shift to have data actually embedded at every level. And that is mirrored and led to advancements in these tools that could provide any user limited database skill sets, little data expertise, with direct access to get answers without needing any sort of technical resource and to work directly with the data themselves. So at this point, virtually every decision within an organization could now be backed by data. And we start to see and continue to see data just permeate through the entire organization, allowing decision makers really just at every level to become more confident in their decision making. And we see businesses are able to make better decisions overall just by leveraging the data throughout. So this is giving organizations the ability to truly become data-driven in every sense. And we see this take off, right? Every company wants data. Every company wants to leverage data. Companies who are data-driven are seeing tangible, concrete value coming from the ability to track, monitor progress, and to predict future outcomes. And everyone wants it. The information becomes ubiquitous across industries, across geographies, and we see this global trend continue to really just take off. And while this new functionality and accessibility definitely provided unique value, it's also introducing gaps in the data comprehension. And so it's introducing this a bit of data chaos. So if you can imagine, if you have different departments operating separately, making decisions separately, they're still using data sets, but maybe they're using different data sets. and they're defining the data slightly differently. So even though everything is backed by data, the data is slightly siloed, is isolated, or it's actually limited in its ability to be interpreted properly and to be leveraged by non-savvy, non-technical, non-data experts. And so keep in mind at this phase, the amount of data that is being collected, that is being processed, it's only growing. And behind the scenes, the data processing is becoming more sophisticated and more robust. And so by providing access to essentially everyone, the data experts and the technical teams and leadership and decision makers really need to ensure that the data is being interpreted correctly and being leveraged correctly. Because of, like, when you think about a modern business intelligence solution, we, even just like one generation before the existing solutions, before today, those have the sophistication and the ability to handle billions of rows of data, to ingest data from multiple data sources. And when you think about the complexity of the data itself, that has with it and holds with it significant risk for human error if users and data consumers have limited data expertise. And so companies now are finding themselves sifting through data, really trying to decipher and differentiate between signal and noise. And they come to find that data is really only as powerful as the insights that we can gather or the questions that we're asking. So we see the shift in focus toward insight, and organizations really ask themselves, are the decision makers that we are empowering with this data asking the right questions? And in all of this information, what is actually the key insight? So one more phenomenon I want to bring to light that's happening alongside the advances in data capabilities. So as I've mentioned before, the amount of data is increasing. The ability to make data-driven decision-making is widespread. It's a common best practice at this point. So we're simultaneously watching the decision-making process actually become more complex. Because with this, there's this newfound visibility behind each decision-making criteria and organization-wide at this systemic level. So we're watching and witnessing as decisions across and within an organization are becoming more connected, more contextual, and more continuous. And so with that, there's a need for data to become just as centralized, just as integrated, and for the decision to be equipped with skills that allows them to navigate the complexity of the data, especially in this evolving decision-making process. So that's where this next iteration of business intelligence is headed. It's a curated data experience that's designed specifically for human consumption, for humanizing information, to really cut through the noise and provide a clear insight to the data consumer. So where do we go from here? What does this look like? Illustrated, we are now at a phase where it's no longer about the access to information, right? In fact, we've kind of walked through and proven we might have access to too much information. So now the shift is to build tools that are catered to the human experience and optimized to deliver direct insight. And at the forefront of this, we have questions shaping the future, like how do we put analytics to work for people who are not data experts? And how do we leverage data to make people's lives easier and to provide direct insight that goes beyond the questions they're asking and what they think they need? So when we think about the next phase of analytics, we're seeing, and yeah, we're expecting this drastic change in the analytics experience. So I think the core elements are making data more accessible when and where users need it. So redesigning every step of the data journey to focus on the human data consumer and make that data consumption an immersive experience that's woven through existing operational processes and workflows. Because when you think about the traditional approach to business intelligence today, where a data consumer comes to this centralized access point, they ask a question, they find an answer, that's not really, it's no longer enough to meet the needs of an innovative business and keep them moving forward. BI workflows are changing, they're shifting, and we need to allow for data to be accessible and leverageable when it's needed and where it's needed. So this next generation of tools, data will be embedded and integrated through all of workflows. It will be the data itself will be transformed, synthesized, modeled, and operationalized so that it becomes actionable. So rather than needing to decipher meaning behind a metric and search for an insight as a data consumer, the data will be delivered in a way such that this future data consumer will be able to leverage the power of the insight immediately and directly through a strategic recommendation, an AI-powered predictive forecast, and something that is directly actionable. So I think the next phase will integrate elements of AI into every step of the analytics journey to really guide users to discover key answers that they didn't even know they needed. We're already seeing traditional business intelligence being augmented with AI and machine learning throughout the entire data process, and these will only continue to be integrated more tightly and more closely. And then with advances in user experience, UI design, the next generation will integrate data into existing workflows and interface the data directly into existing tools so that everyone is leveraging the data from platforms they're already using, and the data is just enhancing the existing business processes. So what does that look like, and what does this actually involve? I'll showcase live in just a moment, but want to walk through kind of what you'll see in that demonstration, a few core trends and principles. So the first I've highlighted, a focus on user experience and UI in general. So we're seeing this everywhere. You think about just even on your phone, we're interacting with technological interfaces constantly, and our interaction with that technology is becoming more optimized, more human focused, more catered to the human experience. And analytics is no different. The second piece is automation across devices, right? So again, to this theme of integrating and interfacing data into workflows, not everyone is at their desk logging into a platform. Not everyone is on their phone. It needs to find them when they need it, and it needs to be in real time. So data needs to be live. Data needs to be up to date especially when we talk about it in the context of becoming operationalized and really actionable. And then AI, machine learning, I touched on this, but really leveraging the power of machine learning and technology to provide recommendations to data consumers. So those who might not be as familiar with statistical analysis or data science workflows, how can we distill this information into insight and provide a strategic recommendation that's contextualized to the actual information this person needs to do their job better. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're really just going beyond the traditional intelligence workflow to offer insight and drive intelligence at every phase of a worker's journey. So with that, I will go ahead and hop in and we can see what this looks like in action. So let's walk through this integration of Google Cloud's database architecture, Looker reporting tool, to see how this works in this operational context. And so in this case, we are working with a fictitious freight tracking and logistics company. And we'll walk through this use case of really this control panel, this dashboard reporting that is optimized for the tactical manager, and then moving into the different personas that will be leveraging the power of this data into someone more strategic, and then ultimately into deep diver data discoverer. And so, yeah, just to start, so we're logging into the platform. We have this high level visibility of the entire fleet system. So we have all of the active drivers, all of the active trailers, their routes, the associated revenue. So we can monitor this entire fleet in real time. And then on the back end, what's happening is we have this geospatial data of each driver. We have the sensors embedded into the trucks. And so we have that full tactical and operationalized dashboard with this multidimensional visualization and view that allows us to really gather this high level insight if we want to maybe probe into one specific route. So at this level, we have this high level overview of this macro perspective of the system-wide, all of the routes and the revenue to optimize our fleet paths. But if we want to maybe drill in deeper to one specific route, maybe I want to look within Colorado and I want to look at one specific route, look at the revenue associated with that. Maybe I want to look at the drivers and get a pulse, have their specific intel, vehicle detail. I have all of that visibility and I can kind of navigate through this tactically and get the information that I need to perform my management of this fleet. So behind the scenes, we have these sensors monitoring each truck individually, and I'm receiving these dynamic alert notifications based on any sort of changes or anomalies within that underlying data. Go to my first notification, we can see we have this geospatial data, exact precise coordinates of this driver, and I can see that there's some sort of vibration out of range. So these key insights, these anomalies, these are being surfaced to the key stakeholders, in this case, a management of the fleet, to provide visibility. I don't need to search for the insight, right? I need the data to find me when I need it. And then with that, we have this real-time visibility. And so we can integrate this. We can feed this into this TensorFlow model, leverage best-in-class AI machine learning. And with that, we have this recommendation delivered, contextualized to me as the fleet manager. And this is integrated with that communication channel. So we have this critical mechanical failure. I can now take action. I can initiate this swap. I can send this. This will integrate with that existing text message communication channel. This is my phone number. If I go ahead and send this, and then I check my phone, let's see. And yeah, so I actually just received the message to the driver with your vehicle has been detected with the recommendation of where to proceed. So based on my geo coordinates, the backend recommendation engine, we can send that optimized route directly to the truck driver. If you envision this whole scenario, it's a full circle operationalized data-driven process, right? And so that's the vision. It's integrated at every step and really allows our fleet to be optimized based on what we think and what we know is likely to occur based on the predictive analytics and the data driving that behind it. So beyond just this operational and tactical management, let's now shift into more of the business strategy focus. So if I imagine I am running the business and now I want to understand how that new updated inventory is going to impact our financial forecast, I have full visibility into, this is similarly based on that change, what is now the strategic business impact of this new updated inventory forecast. And so when you think about each persona and having this holistic management system catered specifically to each stakeholder and their needs, with the ability to integrate this into their roles and to their existing workflows, that's where the platform becomes incredibly powerful. And so with that, if we want an even more strategic, a deeper perspective, we can dive into our environment. So this will give us that contextualized high-level business overview. So for an even more strategic perspective, we can dive into this high-level overview dashboard. And this is going to offer that contextualized visualization for the data-driven, the more strategic data-driven decision-making. So I have these high-level KPIs that have been identified by the business, backed by our core missions, right? So fuel consumption, we can understand how efficient our fuel, maintenance, getting deeper into how that is contributing to expenses and utility, and then driver safety. And the way this system-wide overview allows us to then ask questions like, how is driver burnout contributing to overall revenue, or our trip incidents contributing? And we can start to think about, in this case, our three core tenets: maintenance, safety, and fuel consumption, in the context of these larger KPIs that we are committed to driving forward and committed to maybe achieving a certain level up. And so again, that offers really that full ability to contextualize this and to put this in the context of the overall system and to make more continuous and more integrated decisions because that data has all been centralized. And then because we're leveraging Looker on the back end to drive all of this insight, we can provide that democratized access, again, to any user who needs a bit more beyond what we've surfaced in either that initial control panel or that reporting dashboard. We're equipping anyone within the organization to ask any question and then derive that answer directly from the data. So if we want to look at our different trucks and look at fuel consumption, I can bring in the metrics that are relevant to the question that I'm asking. And then within a few clicks, I have a direct visibility into how that's trending across all of our different options. So that becomes, again, super powerful. I can ask any question, a few clicks, answers become evident. And so in this use, I think we've walked through how that intelligent dashboard really translates and contextualizes the data, allows for not only the comprehensive visualization, but then the strategic recommendations, the predictive modeling, and the ability to really operationalize that and integrate that into every workflow for every persona within the existing organization.